Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Today to talk about the Giving Campaign, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about myself and why I'm one of the co-hosts for this. I work in corporate accounting here at Microsoft, and I've been a volunteer at the zoo for over 7 years. I'm a zoo ambassador, a docent, and I'm a keeper aide, or the official title, animal unit volunteer. That means every Saturday I go in and I get to pick up orangutan poop and prepare their diet for the day. So it's very glamorous, and I love every single minute of it. So I get to see the zoo from a lot of different vantage points. And you can see we have our tiger cub. We've had our new tiger cub in the past year. A new tapir baby. She's not looking like a watermelon anymore. She's actually quite large. I think she's definitely over 100 pounds. Yeah, exactly. And I think there's another slide that was going to be up for me to talk about. Exactly. It's going to come up any minute. So go ahead and do it. Okay. Okay. So up here on the left, we have our spectacled owl. And during the summertime and some of the fall and winter and spring, I actually hold this bird on Saturday afternoons. I spend 2 hours, and my job is to talk to the public about raptors and their importance in the environment. And then in that middle slide, we have Kakuta, who's one of the Maasai warriors who works at the zoo, works 6 months at the zoo. And I actually, through the zoo, had the opportunity to go and spend 2 weeks in his community. So we actually lived in his village with his people. They did build facilities, though, so we had toilets and showers. Very important to know. But through him and through that experience, I've learned a lot about the Maasai culture, Africa, and it was a very, very rewarding experience. So there's really a lot that the zoo has to offer. I know that we're going to be talking about conservation projects today, and we're going to be talking about the new penguin exhibit. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm Cheryl D. at Microsoft.com, so feel free to email me. I'm also offering free tours on weekends to anyone who wants a tour of zoo grounds. Not behind the scenes, but that's actually on a very strictly limited basis, and a lot of volunteers don't get to go behind the scenes. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Michaeline now.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Michaeline Johnson, and I'm a senior programmer down in the LPO IT group. And I just wanted to talk for a couple minutes today about some of the membership benefits, that we have for the Woodland Park Zoo. I've been donating for about 2 years now to the Woodland Park Zoo. It's a great organization. You're going to hear today from a lot of great people, a lot of the great things going on. I wanted to talk to you about how you can kind of involve your family as well. The Woodland Park Zoo and Zoological Society is one of the many charities that Microsoft provides matching gifts for. And so for things, they have sponsorship levels. For things as little as like $150, and Microsoft matches that to $300, you get what they call a Kodiak membership, which is free admission not only to the Woodland Park Zoo, but everybody in their group, which is 120 zoos around the country. You get free admission for yourself, for your children, even for grandchildren. You also get with that a couple guest passes per year, like she was talking about, so you can bring guests in. One of the exciting things, though, is if you donate up to $500 a year and Microsoft matches that to $1,000, then you get to go in what they call the Safari Club level. And that's where the excitement really begins, because what they do is you get all the same benefits, the same free membership to any one of the zoos and the guest passes, but you also get the ability to go behind the scenes in some of the things, some of the events. They will send you out notifications through the year when they have special events at the zoo. Like last year, they had Jeff Corwin from the Jeff Corwin Experience, the Animal Planet show. He came to Woodland Park Zoo for, I believe it was a 2-day engagement. But the night before he was in the public, they had a members-only event. And that's where the Safari Club really comes in, because all the Safari Club members are invited to go to this members-only event to see people like this, to see events like this. So it's a great organization, not just for you, but for your family, to get your kids involved and stuff like that, to get their friends involved. So, like I said, I'm not going to talk anymore about that, waste any time. Let's get right into this. I'm going to introduce Monica Lake. She is a project manager with Woodland Park Zoo, and she's going to talk about the new penguin exhibit that we have.
Monica, you might want to just run through the agenda real quick. Oh, okay. Sure. Do you want me to just talk, or do you want to talk through the slides?
Well, sure, why don't I? My name is Paul Bali, and I am with Woodland Park Zoo, and I'm really glad to see you all here. What I want to do is just give you a quick idea of where Woodland Park Zoo started. Back in the late 1800s, there was a gentleman by the name of Guy Finney, who was a real estate developer and a timber mill owner. He set up a few hundred acres on what is now called Finney Ridge, and had a nice little English mansion and a menagerie. And that is really the roots or the beginnings of Woodland Park Zoo. So what you're looking at here is a circa late 1800s picture of where the zoo began. And we've really come a long way since then to the Woodland Park Zoo that you know today. So
Next
I will
slide.
go back to introducing Monica. Briefly, here is the agenda for today. And Monica is our project manager who is helping us design the new penguin exhibit. So I'll leave it to Monica.
I am going to tell you a little bit about our penguins, Spheniscus humboldti, and give you a little sneak peek of our behind-the-scenes project management, project development for the new penguin exhibit that we're doing at Woodland Park. There's Spheniscus humboldti written for you, for the visual learners in the crowd. We have this wonderful bird currently, and we are working to build a habitat that better suits them. In 1947, the zoo opened a new state-of-the-art exhibit for sea lions. Over the past tens of years, we have done a few things to make this more hospitable for our Humboldts. We've added a filtration system, we've added a few naturalistic rocks, but there is still a huge room for improvement. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Spheniscus because the Humboldt penguin is not an Antarctic penguin. It's a penguin that lives in South America, and I'll show you a few places that you can find Humboldt. But the reason that it's named Humboldt is that it is on the coast of South America, on the west coast of South America in Chile and Peru, and it relies on the anchovies that come closer to shore along with the Humboldt Current. But the challenge is that during El Nino years that current goes offshore, and the penguin being one of the top predators in the food chain is faced with starvation because there simply aren't enough fish close into the shore for them to eat. They abandon the nests, and the populations have significantly dwindled over the past 30 years. Historically, there were populations in the 250,000. We're now down to between 10 to 12,000 birds. These are just to give you an idea of the habitat that we're talking about when we talk about the Humboldt penguin. Very arid landscapes, no ice, and they're right up there on the shore. Historically, they have built their nests in these massive guano cliffs, and what you're looking at there are thousands of years of seabird guano layered year after year. People in the area have also mined this, and that's where the penguin and the local populations have basically competed for the same resource, and the penguins have not done as well. Anchovies, of course, are also fished, and both of those resources are mined by the tons. Penguins in their nests. So Woodland Park Zoo's primary mission is to engage people to learn, care, and act to preserve animals and their habitat. That's our primary goal. And as I mentioned earlier, the penguins' primary threats in their native habitat are the fish, overfishing, and the loss of their guano cliffs in order to nest. So now I'm going to show you a little bit about how we're developing our new exhibit and the strategies that we're using not only to create a naturalistic habitat that will provide the penguins with the best living environment, but will also enable our guests to see natural behaviors in penguins as they are at the zoo. For the past year, we have at Woodland Park been working on something where we build full-scale models as a group. So we bring our education department, our facilities department, our exhibits department, conservation together, and we work out in a full-scale model what it is we want to depict, and then we build it. So we understand exactly how the visitor will be engaging in the new exhibit. And this is an example of our penguin model. If you're down at orangutans, as was mentioned earlier, you can look over and see this. It's behind the scenes, but you can get a quick peek of it. We've also done modeling to understand how the water will act within the penguin pool, so that we're able to understand what happens with the feathers. Penguins have a huge molt cycle, and so you get massive amounts of feathers in your pool, as well as lots and lots of penguin poop. And by doing this one-to-one scale model, we were able to understand how, by putting little jets along the bottom of the pool, we're able to move that penguin poop into the pool, down in the drain, get it out, and recycle it. Woodland Park is actively engaged in understanding how we can be as competent stewards of all our resources. And as part of developing this exhibit, we will be taking that water and filtering it through mechanical filter, but then the last backwash will go through a constructed wetlands where we actually have the plants and the microbes that are on the roots of those plants digesting that last bit of filtered material, and then putting it back into the pool, so that our goal, and as we've mocked it up, we will not be putting any of our penguin pool water into the storm sewer. We currently have to dump and fill in order to provide water clarity. We, through this system, will be able to simply filter our water indefinitely, which is an exciting thing, and we're really looking forward to incorporating that into the exhibit. When we first started the project, we got together and did that full-scale mock-up that I showed you the picture of, and then we had a surveyor come out and survey that, and provided that survey to the architect whom we hired, who has the basic skills of exhibit design, builds the kind, or designs, and then has built the kinds of exhibits that you see at Woodland Park. But this was really that very detailed measured drawing of what we had done on the full-scale model, and we said, start there and then we'll take that forward. In that way, we were able to capture the expertise of the zoo staff without having the overlay of a design team come in and say, you know, this is how penguins should live and this is how penguins should be exhibited, when they really don't have nearly as much information about animal husbandry and penguin habits and guest habits as our in-house staff did. So it was quite exciting and quite a different moment for the design team. But as you can see, through workshops, we have now come to this stage where we've reworked a little bit of the plans and are now providing for, let's see if I can work with these little arrows, our 4 primary views. So this is the first view where you'll see penguins splashing in water that's about 24 inches deep. You'll then go down to this area, see penguins in chest-high deep water. You're going to see a nest that is adjacent to the perimeter glass. The next site is water that is here, and it's going to be at 5'6" high. That's that first view. So there'll be penguins in their nest boxes. Behind this is our artist rendering. And we really hope to be able to provide the full range of penguin behavior, the swimming, the nesting, and the interaction with 50 birds. So it should be quite exciting. We're going to start construction in June of next year and hopefully open the exhibit in June of 2009. We hope you can come out and visit us and see the construction along the way if you come out sooner than that. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you out there. I'm sorry? Yeah.
Right. Thanks for coming here today. I'm going to talk about conservation at the zoo, and I'm the director of conservation at Woodland Park Zoo. And a lot of people don't even realize that Woodland Park Zoo is involved in field conservation. So when people ask me what I do, I say that I connect the animals at the zoo and the exhibits at the zoo with work on the ground in the field. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the programs at the zoo. And in general, I don't know if you know this, but zoos and aquariums have made a commitment in the last 10 years of really contributing to wildlife conservation, whether it's actual people from zoos going out into the field or zoos more and more supporting field programs. And it's a pretty exciting time for the world of zoos and aquariums. And then we also link it back to the zoos with education of our public. And the way Monica was talking about our penguin exhibit, one thing that we're really striving to do is connect the education and conservation components of penguins to the exhibit that we're planning. So as Monica said, our mission is to save animals and their habitats through conservation leadership and engaging experiences, inspiring people to learn, care, and act. And we take that very seriously. So what I'm going to do is just go over a bit about our different conservation programs. And we have had a formal conservation department for about 3 years, but Woodland Park Zoo has been involved in conservation for probably 20 years, but now we've formalized it more. We call it our Woodland Park Zoo's Partners for Wildlife program, and what we do is we make a commitment to habitat protection and species conservation in the wild. We try to, as best as possible, link our field conservation programs with the zoo's biomes and species at the zoo. And when I say I don't know how many of you know the Woodland Park Zoo very well, but when you walk around our zoo, the way we've divided it up is really biomes or areas, habitats of the world. So we have the tropical rainforest area, we have the Asian forest area, we have the deciduous or the local forest area. And so then we have partners for these different places of the world. We also have really made a commitment to support community-based conservation programs. And so we're making a commitment to not only the animals in these range countries, but also to the communities and the people that live there. And then another piece of our program is that we're really trying to integrate the expertise of zoos with our field conservation partners. And so we'll have veterinarians from the zoos that go out into the field, or we will have exhibit planners if someone is trying to create a sanctuary in an area in the field. So there's a lot of exchange with the expertise at zoos. And we also actually have volunteers, like, where are you? Sometimes we even have volunteers or docents at the zoo that participate in field conservation programs. I run a field conservation program in Papua New Guinea, and we have a veterinary technician who's been volunteering at the zoo, and she came to Papua New Guinea with me to help us out. And we have other kinds of volunteers that can get involved with field conservation programs as well. So we had to make a decision about where we were going to spend our resources for Woodland Park Zoo in conservation. And what we decided was, instead of trying to do it all, that we would focus. And we decided to focus in 3 regions of the world. So we're focusing in Asia Pacific, which is a pretty broad area. And partly it's because we're in the Pacific Rim, and also a lot of our animals at the zoo are from that region of the world. We also focus on Africa with a big focus on African savanna species, and then the Pacific Northwest, because we also feel like it's really important to take care of our own backyard as well. So I'm just going to go through these different regions. With the Asia Pacific program, we support the program that I run, the Tree Kangaroo Conservation Program. And I've been running that program for close to 12 years. And every year, staff go into the field, and we have staff also on the ground in Papua New Guinea. And I have students in Papua New Guinea, as well as students that go over to New Guinea with me. We also support the Snow Leopard Trust, which probably many of you are familiar with. It's based here in Seattle, and it's been a very important partner with the Woodland Park Zoo. We also support a program of Cranes of Asia, which is based in Russia, but it's supporting crane species that migrate into China and Japan. And then we also support programs on orangutans, elephants, and hornbills. For the African program, we support Kakuta and the program that he runs. So he spends half his year here in Seattle serving as an interpreter at the zoo, doing what we call first-person interpreter, where he's able to interact with the guests and tell the guests not only, this is a giraffe, this is a hippo, but also how he and his community are connected with wildlife, and how culture and communities interact with wildlife. So the other half of the year, he's back in his village, and he is running a program called the Water Holes Project, which is trying to create water holes both for people and for animals. And it's been a really successful program, and we've also supported his community in education and building schools. We also support a program in Tanzania on elephants and migration. And obviously elephants are very important to Woodland Park Zoo. We've made a big commitment to elephants, both here at the zoo and then in terms of conservation. And then finally, I don't know if any of you have seen the wild dog exhibit, but we have a very strong connection with a program in Botswana where we support long-term wild dog research and conservation. And then for the Pacific Northwest, we have several different programs: pond turtles, butterflies of the Northwest, raptors. And I'm very proud to say, we have created an alliance with all of the other zoos and aquariums in the Pacific Northwest. So there are 10 institutions that are in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and British Columbia. And we've all joined together to see how we can make a big difference in terms of local conservation issues. And so with this Pacific Northwest Zoo and Aquarium Alliance, we have partnerships with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, other Northwest conservation organizations like the Nature Conservancy, and then universities like UW.
That last slide, it looked like the grizzly bear outreach was literal.
And that's why our exhibits are so great, because this is one of our exhibits, and yeah, people can get right up close to the animals. Yeah, so yeah, I guess I should be careful with that slide. So I just want to show you a few with the Western Pond Turtle Recovery Program. This has also been like a 10-year program. And we've been doing Head Start and reintroductions with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Oregon Zoo. And this is something where zoos have a unique capacity to raise turtles like no other conservation organization, and do head starting, which means we actually get the small turtles after they're hatched. They're brought into the zoo, and under the care of our zookeeper and animal management staff, they're raised until they're large enough that they can be released and not be eaten by one of their predators, which are bullfrogs. So zoos play this sort of unique role in this conservation project, We also do head starting and rearing of butterflies. We're working on the Oregon silver spot butterfly. And then, again, the Grizzly Bear Outreach Project. This is more what I meant. Chris Morgan is one of our partners, and he goes around the state, and particularly in rural areas, educating people about what it means to live comfortably and safely with bears. And we've been supporting that program. We do, every year, we have a weekend that's called the Bear Affair, and everyone's welcome to come to it. And where we actually, it's a great weekend. We actually, with our two bears, they're two male bears, we set up a tented camp, and we allow the bears to just go for it and destroy the camp. And that's how not to go camping. And then we do a lot of education about how to safely go camping in bear country. And then we support work on ferruginous hawks and then also on golden eagles. Woodland Park Zoo also has a small grants program and something called conservation dues, where we feel very committed to the endangered species in our collection. And so we'll make small donations on a yearly basis to the programs that are working, like our golden lion tamarins. We've been supporting them for a long time. Penguins, of course. And we're actually looking in the future to get rhinos as well, and so we've also been supporting rhino conservation. But we feel like it's important to have a small grants program. It's a way for us to support kind of emerging new innovative projects, but also a way for us to look and see potential new partners for our Partners for Wildlife program. And I would have to say, I'm a conservation biologist, but I would have to say that conservation is really about people. And whether it's staff people that are actually doing the work in the field, or whether it's educators back at the zoo that are talking to the public, or school groups about what we're doing, or whether it's veterinarians that are helping out in conservation programs, or whether it's all of you that could support the conservation programs. But it really is about people. I spend most of my time either here talking to people or in Papua New Guinea talking to communities about conservation. And I feel like it's really a team effort for conservation. And I'm very proud that Woodland Park Zoo has made a commitment to linking our zoo with field conservation. So I think I will now pass it on, yes, to you? Yeah. Okay. And you have your...
Let me just change gears here. Change roles. My name is Karen Oftus, and I am an interpreter in the education department, a naturalist in the education department at the zoo. I've been with the zoo for a very, very long time. And I really have one of the greatest jobs in that I get to work with all different kinds of animals. It's always a thing that people are waiting for and looking for. And it's interesting that we talk about conservation because, you know, obviously, just as Lisa was saying, some of the best conservation programs are those conservation programs that involve local communities with them. If you don't have local involvement, then it's an uphill battle to try to protect wildlife. And obviously, the next step that you want to go is when you're protecting wildlife, you're working with wildlife, you want to look at entire ecosystems. So at the zoo, we use a lot of different kinds of animals to create that opportunity for people to learn, care, and act. And because if you build relationships with animals, you're more likely to protect them and thus the animals and possibly the people and the rest of the environment that animals comes from. So we do use a lot of animals, and it's really easy, you know, to bring. I brought two animals here. Yeah, Koba is one of them. He knows. He's like, okay, what is going on? See, I like the surprise of it. So I did bring one. Koba, he's an animal that's a animal. He's like, oh, you know, there's some animals that just exhibit that, right? And then there's other animals that their response is sort of people come and they're like, oh, you know, oh, and they might draw back a little bit. So I have brought two different animals here. One is a, oh, animal. Yeah, it's the one in the cooler. And the other one is, oh, animal. But I want to say something, the importance is sometimes even the animals are really, really valuable to us. And the greatest story that I can think of is it was last spring or so. And I was taking a little VIP group around on zoo grounds. And they had you know teenagers, right? Who has a teenager? Okay, a couple of teenagers. Who was a teenager? Yeah, do you remember being a teenager? And especially teenage girls. And as I was coming around the corner, I was waiting for the group. It was about 15, 20 people. I was waiting for this nice, beautiful day, waiting for the group to catch up. I saw on the ground one of those European brown slugs, the ones you really try hard to kill in your garden, right? And I was waiting for the come. I said, "Oh God, you guys, check this out!" And I looked down, and there was a 13-year-old girl in my group. And the first thing, literally, I literally went like this, right? And the first thing that she did is, "Oh my God, don't touch that! It's so gross!" She so appropriately, like a 13-year-old, she freaked out. And of course, use the teachable moment. I said, "No, check this out. This is the coolest thing." And people are coming. So I thought, here's an opportunity. It's an animal. And I said, "Okay, you guys, check this. I want you to use the power of that. Your observations tell me what you see." And so I leaned down. She was like, "Oh, my God, you're going to touch it." And I just stroked it a couple of times, and I asked them to tell me what they saw. And, of course, what they saw was, what do those slugs do when you touch them? Right. They just start to ball up. They're, "Oh, my God, the eye sockets are going in." And so everyone's now announcing everything they saw, right? And they started to ball up. And I said, "Check this out." When I first stroked it, I said, "Look how thick the viscous, the slime is." It was really not very thick. And then just 30 seconds later, it was tacky. And they're just, the 13-year-olds freaking out. And everyone's doing this. I said, "This is amazing. Now, look at this." And as I picked it up, we talked about why it's doing this. That it gets thicker, so if a predator happens to pop this animal in its mouth, it's more likely to get stuck. It gets thick, so it can't be swallowed down. The animal will be spit out, right? And as I picked it up, I heard a bunch of ohs. I changed an animal into kind of an oh animal. I picked it up. I said, "Oh, check it out. You want to see this?" Do you know what that 13-year-old girl said? "Come on, please, can I hold it? Please, please, can I hold it?" Swear, true story. She went from, "Oh my God, you're not going to touch it," to, "God, please hold it, please. Can I please hold it?" So it's really great when that happens, because then you're thinking, yes, the opportunities for engaging with wildlife are everywhere. And if we just walk past them, it could be a slug, but something really, really magical happened then. So I have a animal, and I have an animal. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. It's not a slug. I did not bring a slug. But I did bring an animal that's pretty darn cool. I know Ted, he knows this animal because he's seen it before last year. So I'm going to get this one out. Want to listen? Maybe she'll, yeah. Can you hear that? This is so cool. This is so cool. See, there we go. We start with there's a question mark at the end of that. Oh. Yeah, this is so cool. This is called a giant thorny phasmid. I'm going to come around so everyone can see it. It's called a giant thorny phasmid or a jungle nymph. And this is a species of walking stick that's found on the Malaysian peninsula. It spends most of its life living up in trees or in broadleaf. You can come on in here, Missy. You come on in right here. There's a spot for you right here. Come on. I have some really cool bugs. And another animal, too. So this giant thorny phasmid is a tropical species that lives in the trees or in broadleaf plants, and it's not too uncommon in this area. If you decide that you're going to take a trip to Malaysia and want to have a check out. Now, she may be a very simple bug, simple animal, but very, very complex biology. She has at least 6 different ways that she can protect herself. Now, the first way is what's the most obvious about her? Look at her. Isn't she beautiful? Her name is Julia. And she does not like ice cream. She only likes leaves. Now, she's got 6 different ways. So the first is what? Yeah, camouflage. She's that brilliant, beautiful green color, so she'll camouflage. But also check out the shape of her body. What is she shaped like?
A leaf.
Yeah, what do you see on the top of her back there?
Spike.
Yeah, can you see these? Well, if you look in this, she's like, no. Can you see underneath there? That red wing?
Wow.
I'm going to be really careful lifting that up. I'll bring it over to you, Amy. So she's green, and she's shaped like a leaf, so camouflage is her first 2 ways of defense. Now, you also notice that she's covered with spikes. So this is a great, and we're talking some serious spikes. Look at the back of her legs. Yeah. It looks like a rose bush. And what she'll do is, obviously, if there's some hungry primate or something that wants to get her, they run up, they grab her. They're more likely to either spit her out or to drop her because those spikes are really, really, really sharp. Now, if that's 3 ways. Another 4th way is if you're harassing her and obviously the camouflage and the spikes aren't working, she'll go into kind of a freeze posture. And all of her limbs will come out. And she totally freezes, like, you can't see me. So here we go. This is 4. And then if something stimulates underneath her legs, right here, she will scissor her legs shut so that anything that's under there will get speared by the spikes. It's very effective. It actually draws blood, and it's the only time I ever cry in public. So, and she's the one you worry about tigers. I worry about her. She'll get you. So that's the one way. Now another way is that, did you hear that crackling sound as I was reaching into the box to get her? It's okay. But she's transforming into an animal, into an animal. So, now she cannot jump, she can't fly, and she can't run. She can only walk, so she can't go anywhere except where she is. So we have 4 ways that she's protecting herself. Another way is that sound that you heard. Now these wing covers, can you see on the top that looks like there's leaves, right? There's a little elytra right here. See those leaves? Her wings are actually underneath that. I'll show you. I'll try to pull it up really gently. Can you see the little red wings under there? Now her wings are vestigial. They're shrunken down. They're not used for what they were originally intended for, evolutionarily speaking. So she can use those. She can kind of crackle them. Crackle, crackle, crackle. She makes a crackling sound. So she makes a startling hissing sound to startle anything away. And if that doesn't work, okay, if the camouflage, if the leaf shape, if the thorns, if the freeze and trap in the back legs, if none of those things work, if the hissing doesn't work, if all these last things doesn't work, then the last thing she'll do is she'll arch that abdomen right over her back and mimic. Who does that? Yeah, scorpions. I'm like, simple bug, very, very complex biology. And people's usually first reaction to animals like this is, they draw back. But when you stop for just a second and think about them, how amazing they really are, especially insects. Insects are just phenomenal in terms of their adaptations and their variety. The biodiversity is amazing. And with doing conservation in Papua New Guinea, Lisa sees cool bugs all the time, very cool bugs. So this is our first animal, our animal. It's like, not more than 2 years. I mean, and certainly in the wild, it's going to be less than that. It's about 2 years in the zoo. And of course, we mitigate everything in their environment. They get the very best blackberry bramble around. So we take care of all of that. So she'll live about 2 years, but she's an egg layer, so she'll lay several hundred eggs in her lifetime. And I just discovered the other day we had one that was at the end of its life. It was just a little bit over 2 years old, and as it was dying, it was laying eggs. It was amazing. She was dying, and she was clearly dying, and she was ovipositing. She'll take that abdomen and poke it into moist soil and lay eggs. It was amazing. And she'd been laying eggs all her life. All right, so that's our first animal. Hopefully we've transformed what is kind of maybe sticky to some people into a little bit more comfortable animal. The second one is as Cheryl knows, is a very popular creature on zoo grounds. He's done lots of programs. He's very sweet. His name is Koba, as you know. You're like, what exactly is Koba? He's not a penguin. And it's just because penguins, they're cute and everything, but boy, they just stink to high heaven. Listen to that. Hear that? Yes, Kobe. Yes, Koba. Oh, I know. Who's my friend? What does he say? Did you hear him? You're right! Excellent! You're so right! Listen. Are you talking? He's talking. He's going like that. And that's sort of, he's just in love. That's what it is. He's in love. His name is Koba. He is a spectacled owl. He gets his name because of those white feathers around his eyes. And this is a species of bird that's found in Central and South America. It's a tropical bird. You'll find them from about southern tip of Mexico to about central Argentina. They inhabit predominantly tropical forest, but they are also found, as you know, most of you probably know, southern Brazil, northern Argentina is very, very dry country. It's a scrub habitat. Very, very dry. So these guys will actually do pretty well in a variety of types of habitat, but the majority of the populations are found in tropical forest. And like any conservation issue, these guys, we don't know a lot about them in the wild. They spend the majority of their time, 100, 120 feet off the forest floor in habitat that people can't get into or can't see them very well. It's very difficult to spot birds that live so high off the ground. So not a whole lot is known about them in the wild, but certainly is in turn with any conservation issue, whatever happens to the forest happens to these animals and happens to everything else that's living in that forest. So by protecting and supporting projects that support ecosystems and habitat, you're supporting everything in it, including the great mega charismatic animals such as owls. Now, Koba is a bird that actually we hatched at the zoo. He's almost 17 years old. He doesn't look a day over 1, but he doesn't really. There's nothing. And he's the sweetest animal, really. He's really great for education programs. We hatched him at the zoo. We had his parents, and we didn't know how good they would be at being first-time parents. It's not uncommon for first-time owls' parents to either abandon their nests or sometimes commit infanticide. And for many owl species, the mortality rate is about 50% in the first year because they're just not good enough at hunting. So we didn't want to have any problems with that, so we took him and hand-raised him. And so now we use him for education programs, and he's very, very easy to work with. He can handle anything. He can handle lights. He can handle bubbles. He can handle little screaming kids. He's very, very tolerant. So he is one of the animals that we use for education. Now, if anybody has any questions about Koba or the walking stick, I do want to pass it on. I don't want to take too much time. I will be here with him so that you guys can ask questions or get up close and personal with him, especially little munchkins like this. You know, it's little munchkins like this, ultimately, I think that we, at least for me, I can certainly speak for myself, that I work for. I don't have children myself, but I work so that, because I think she has a right, she has a right to have a nice, clean, healthy world to live in, and to have the experiences that you and I are so lucky to have if you've been to Africa and you've been to Kakuta's village, if you have traveled anywhere, if you get to do your research in habitat that is healthy and clean and is supported by the people that live there. By doing this kind of work is how we create that right for little kids like this. So I'm happy to spend my time doing that. And however you guys want to support the zoo in doing that, you come and do volunteer work, or you support us financially or with your time and your effort. We really, really appreciate your assistance. So are you? Paul? Kevin? Who follows me? Kevin? So I'm going to go ahead and pass it up to Kevin. And again, I will be here so you guys can see Koba up close as soon as Kevin is finished. We'll let him get out here.
Such is life. I'm Kevin Schofield. I'm a general manager in Microsoft Research. I want to just take a minute and tell you a little bit through the context. I've been involved with the zoo for a number of years. I just wanted to give you a little context as to why I've been involved in the zoo. I've given money to the zoo for many, many years. I also, from time to time, been a volunteer with the zoo. It's actually been a great experience for me because I've learned a lot about the zoo and zoos in general. And as I travel around on my job or for fun, I try to visit zoos wherever I go and just learn and see sort of the diversity. We have one of the best zoos in the world, absolutely top-notch, one of the best zoos in the world. And it almost wasn't. Back in 1971, there was a levy being voted on by the city of Seattle, just like we just recently had one a couple months ago. The recent one succeeded, thank goodness. The one back in 1971 failed, right? And it was to cover the basic operating costs for the zoo. And suddenly they didn't have their operating funding. And it was a major crisis for the zoo in 1971. And back then, the zoo was all the worst things people think of zoos, right? It was animals in cramped cages that were clearly unhappy. And actually, at that level, it probably wasn't a big surprise that a lot of people said, yeah, maybe we don't want to pay for this anymore. And the leadership of the zoo really had two choices. One, they could close, or two, they could do something different. And they stepped back and really thought about what a zoo could be and what the potential could be for a zoo, and wrote this amazing visionary document about their vision as a leadership of the Woodland Park Zoo and what they wanted to turn into. And they said really three things. They said, number one, zoos aren't about animals in cages. They're about habitats, right? Understanding that you don't just understand an animal by looking at it in isolation. You have to look at it as part of the whole ecosystem about it. Number two, it's about education, right? It's really about teaching people about the animals and about their habitats so that we understand the importance of them. We understand food chains and whole, biospheres so that we can understand how these pieces all fit together, because they really do and they're interdependent. And three, it's about conservation. In 1971, 1972, a zoo saying we want to be involved in conservation was a huge thing, right? As Lisa was saying, the last 10 years, suddenly it's become a big thing. In the 1970s, nobody was doing this. And so out of this, they said, look, we need to completely redo the zoo. And the first exhibit they started with was a gorilla exhibit, right? And we're very lucky to have a, I don't think anybody said it yet. There's a new baby gorilla was born at the zoo just this past Saturday, right? So more excitement at the zoo to add to their list of new animals there. But the first exhibit they changed that was open in 1975, somebody mentioned this earlier, was a gorilla exhibit. And it was a naturalistic exhibit. And it was really one of the first naturalistic exhibits anywhere in the world. And the zoo community in the United States, when they saw the plan that the Woodland Park Zoo was going to do for this, said, you're crazy. If you put gorillas in a naturalistic exhibit, they're going to destroy it. And the zoo directors here said, you know, in the wild, they don't do that. So we're going to place a bet that if we do that here, they won't destroy their habitat. And sure enough, they didn't. And the second one they did was the African savanna, where they said, the radical idea, let's put a bunch of different animals together in an exhibit. And like they are in the wild, so people can learn about what that habitat is like. And people said, you're crazy, they'll kill each other. And they said, well, yeah, if we put carnivores out there, they'll kill each other. But if we put herbivores out there, they don't kill each other in the wild, and they probably won't do it here. And so the Woodland Park Zoo was really, that was early on an example of being just an amazing pioneer for what a zoo could be and could stand for and could do in their community and the world. And they've continued this tradition all along. They've been in March now for, 35 years now. And they're just putting the finishing touches now with the penguin exhibit and 1 or 2 other exhibits on completely redoing the zoo from animals in cages to habitats. And it's really absolute top-notch zoo. I've been, I think, incredibly privileged to be involved with that and a supporter for it. And that's just from my point of view why I've continued to be a supporter, and I'm willing to stand up and say, this is something worth supporting. It's an incredible asset to our community. They could have done what San Diego Zoo did and turned it into a big entertainment attraction. They haven't done that. They've stayed true to what their mission is about inspiring and educating people to care, act, and what's the third one? Learn, care, and act. Almost got it. Learn, care, and act to preserve animals in their habitats, which really goes back to the 1971 vision, right? It's about education, it's about habitats, and it's about conservation. And it's just an incredible asset, and we're very privileged to have it. And if we don't continue to act, the day will come where we don't have it anymore. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to Paul, and you can say a few words for me. And it's all true.
Extremely eloquent, Kevin. Thank you.
They recently revised it in the last year or two but the mission.
Right. Very, very eloquent, Kevin. I really want to thank all of our hosts today for hosting this event. They bought you lunch, and they really believe in the zoo, as you can tell. So I wanted to thank Michaeline and Kevin and Cheryl. So I want to give them a round of applause for that. Appreciate it. It's interesting. About 8, 9 years ago, I was actually in your place. I actually was working here at Microsoft, last on Yusuf Mehdi's team a few years back. He's kind of moved around a little bit. But all of that to say that I was inspired at a presentation by a nonprofit organization, and that's how I'm actually here today. So you can still do what you do and support some of these great organizations. So what I want to do is give you an idea of what you can do to support Woodland Park Zoo. So a couple of things. I mean, one of the things that you heard was that the zoo has 1.1 million visitors a year. And just think of the leverage that a donation to the zoo can have. You can support education, you can support conservation, you can support animal care. And you can do that all by making a donation to the zoo, and you can reach 1.1 million visitors a year. So that's one thing that I think is very powerful. Another great thing to know about the zoo is that we do get a lot of great support from folks at Microsoft. In fact, since 1985, we've been doing the numbers, still trying to figure out what the exact number is, but close to $15 million has been funded by Microsoft employees, by Microsoft Corporation, including grants and in-kind gifts, and former employees since 1985 to Woodland Park Zoo, and we really appreciate that. So I wanted to let you know that you're in good company. A lot of other people are supporting the zoo as well. And another thing briefly I do want to say is that only 36% of our operating revenue actually comes from the city and the county. I mean, you know that there's this levy that Kevin talked about, but only 36% of our funding actually comes from that. The rest comes from membership, it comes from people coming to the gates, and it comes from folks like you who make donations. So I want to give you an idea about some of the ways that you can support the zoo this year in the giving campaign. The first way, maybe you've already been inspired by Monica's presentation talking about the penguins. You could actually help us fund the new penguin exhibit. It's going to cost more than $1 million or $2 million, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best penguin exhibit around. So, we really want you to consider that. Another idea is that you could actually go and look at our giving catalog. In fact, we really haven't had a chance to tell you too much, but there is a little catalog with flamingos on the cover. And take a look at that. Oh, here's one copy, and there should be a couple of others floating around. In fact, there's a few on the back table. In fact, if you guys wouldn't mind handing them out. So these little catalogs are very fun. There are different ways that you can fund different conservation programs, different ways that you can fund education programs, animal care. You have a favorite animal in here. Maybe you like the bears, or maybe you like raptors. There's actually ways that you can support the daily care of animals in this catalog as well. So I've got a few hard copies here, but I also have it available at zoo.org/Microsoft. And when I say zoo.org, yes, Woodland Park Zoo is zoo.org. We were the ones that got the domain. So just go to /Microsoft and you can download one of these catalogs. But this will give you some great ideas of ways that you can support the zoo as well. And then the final option that I throw out is just make it a general or unrestricted gift. That way we can put the funds to work where they're needed most. And you don't have to do anything for that one. For those other two, if you decide you want to donate to the zoo, just put it on the memo line. Say what it is you'd like to donate to, so that we have an idea of where to put the funding. So in closing, I just wanted to say thank you again so much. We appreciate you guys being here. Obviously, you've got interest in conservation. You've got interest in the zoo and an interest in animals. And what I'm going to do is stop talking, give you a chance to ask questions. We can talk one-on-one, and we'll let Karen come up as well. Cheryl, you had one question? Oh, there are a couple of, I'm always forgetting a couple of last notes. So there's actually two things that I wanted to say in closing. One is that we hope to actually announce very shortly a $500,000 grant from Microsoft to the zoo. We haven't formally announced it yet, but it is going to happen, and I just wanted to say that we're really ecstatic about that. Unrelated, but a benefit to you guys. So anyone who donates $500 or more plus Microsoft match, so that's a minimum of $1,000, you will get entered into the drawing for a behind-the-scenes either at Penguins, that's our current penguin exhibit, but you still get to get up close to the penguins, or at the giraffe barn, we'll actually be able to feed the giraffes. So that's a $500 donation plus match, not a lot, and you also get the membership benefits that Michaeline talked about earlier. So I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say. So what I want to do is leave it open for questions. Anybody have any questions right off the top?
How much would I give to feel a Grizzly?
That's a big donation. That's a big donation.
Ask your
And
attorney.
you have to buy the Kevlar vest, see.
That's right. Those are going in naked.
That'll be a challenge. We'll bring in for a Bear Affair weekend. That should be pretty interesting. We'll put you in with the campsite. That would be an interesting one. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.